remember. So like I'm still remember the mention that like Bounce would be like higher rank, way higher rank follows that would be having like the power of shape shifting. Like they would be able to like transform their bodies and shape shift into like human form. It's definitely my favorite that. And that won't be like the biggest issue in like I'm considering that name bounce would be like of like the superior levels of strength of that of either like a main of grande, either equivalent to like the level of strength of that of like a main of grande or even stronger than a main of grande. It's definitely my favorite. While at the same time being in like a compact human-like form, being able to transform and disguise as like a compact human-like form, and like bounce would be also extremely tricky and stealthy and tricky and all that stuff. And it will be collectively this combination of like skills and powers that like bounce have that would be like what will be basically making bounce like so extremely dangerous. And that was Bounce might have never even showed up to like the human world ever. That's like one possibility that I would like, or like it might have been like great number of years since like the last Bounce might have even showed up to like the human world. Especially remember when of like the other possibility that I'm considering. Especially because like since you know my other also personal theory I'm rich on that like usually like there will be like this hierarchy even amongst the monsters follows like there would be hierarchy where like the lower rank follows would be like the precise follows that would be like often attacking like the human world. So like these lower rank follows like won't be allowed by like the higher rank hollows such as like maybe like not just the main of karate but like precisely bounce like that name also different the higher rank bounce like might never usually show up at all to like the human world because like they would like not have any need precisely because like they would have given the order or the higher rank bounce would have always given the orders to like the lower rank follows to like basically on the spirit like that and so that basically the lower rank follows would be capturing like not all of them will be like the lower rank follows might not be allowed to like take the life of all of them like but like there would be like there will be that set quota where like the lower rank follows should like each month like basically or each month or like maybe even each day like they might have this like set quota of like capturing and bringing a certain number of souls just for like to offer for like the precise bounces that leave my reimbursement. So like this might be like the precise rate for like bounty never mostly at all not considering like bounce would be like not having at all shown up to like the human world is definitely my reimbursement. So this might be like this collectively might be like the precise reason for like I'm considering it for like your right now like like making like a huge deal out of like about showing up to like the human world and like this would be like I'm considering like the huge deal behind like bounce like behind like the whole situation of like bounce showing up to like the human world is definitely my personal theory and my personal prediction. Also, like definitely, I'm still sticking to my documentary version right now. That basically, since right now, Urahara is in the reveal that basically it would take more than a year for like agents to be able to like access like the ultimate power of the holy universe. Especially because of this reason, I'm just something like the current situation that like the bounds would be most likely ending up eventually ending up being like a detour or like basically it's going through like whole journey that will be beginning right now. Uh, uh, to like without much great like I'm considering like with like Urahara basically making the reveal that like he's like with like the reveal happening with like Urahara being connected to like the three monsters and the games and everything like so like I'm multiplying like right now like the training without much great at all and also since like the current situation is like bound he was showing up like definitely I'm multiplying like training and getting strong for like it's going through would be like even that not that much more extremely crucial. It's like definitely obviously my personal reference. So like I'm looking like the training of the Juven Pro to like definitely right now itself like Urahara beginning like the training of the Juven Pro. And I'm considering most likely Yorachi as well. Maybe would be like training. Maybe I'm considering it would be this time it would be like Urahara that will be training. This time would be like giving like the bank training once again to like Ichigo. While I'm considering this time the difference would be this time I'm considering maybe it would be Yorachi that would be like training. Uh, chat and Oriflame would like the and they should have like the other person that I'm considering. Or like the other person that I'm considering is like Yorichi being like totally busy with like the whole bounce situation that I'm considering. Yorichi still be was it only busy with like totally in order to like keep like the world of like the living like safe like and the Yoroshi like totally doing that for patrolling and going around and investigation and everything like Yoroshi totally still busy with it that and basically to figure out why exactly about has right now sort of doing like the human one and all that basically. So like you're already being busy with that and not being able to like train, not being part of like the training of like it's going through like the performance that I'm able. So like anyway, like regardless of living with reversal, then like this current bound situation would be that ultimate detour in like Ichigo's like path and Urahara's like path to like get back the Hokage. So like I was wondering like it went through would be like and I'm still thinking about the reversion that like the location in like the word of like the follows where like bounce would be like where like the form of like the bounce would be able to bring it would be in like a different territory from like the territory where like Asen would be right now in it's definitely Asen and like Sabino's standing would be right now in it's definitely able to random so like I'm going to bring like this would be that detour like location where like I'm going to bring and I'm bring Urahara will seeing the situation of the bounce as basically the ultimate training as well. Urahara thinking along this line that basically bring down the bounce would be like such an ultimate training for like Ichigo and Fu, and would be like sharply that like going through that process of like bringing down the bounce like on top of like saving like the word of like believing like it would be that perfect training for Ichigo and Fu, and still would be like seriously strengthening up and would be getting them quickly ready for them to like bring the face case and bring down lines and would be along the lines of the superintendentally for like Urahara to think. And basically that way like I'm going to bring Urahara totally going you know it's like it's going through to like the precise territory where like bounce would be. So like I'm going to bring like by the time it's going and I'm going to bring definitely things to not go as smoothly as like Urahara and Ichigo and all of them would Urahara would be totally planning it's like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm going to bring like it's going through like losing a lot of even though they would be having like more than a year until like season be able to like focus like the whole power of like the whole to still able to bring maybe that possibility of like things totally going wrong in like the way of like the rounds in like the world of all and basically that causing like a lot of precious time to be lost and basically that way usually by the time you went through the finally defeating like the bounce and basically will be getting off to like the third way round Jason will be like at that point, I'm also bringing that way by them only being able to like make it in like the nick of time. So like by the time like they will be like making it like say like Hazel will be totally about to like precisely constantly would be like at that point will be about to process like the power of like the body. So like it's going to go doing that at once to like stop that from happening, but like still like by the time it's going to be making it like it's going to be making it towards like Hazel without totally but within that lab second like is imposing like about the whole cute like announce one possibility of like a scenario that I'm going the other possibility of like a scenario that I'm going to the thing is for like it's going through like things to like not go extremely wrong for like to go through and definitely though they will be struggling like they still usually offering and bring down like the walls but like by the time like Urahara and it went through the making it to the location of Asian would be like at that point like I'm going to bring maybe like them getting that ultimate shot that like because like by the time they would be making it to like the way where like Asian would be like the way word of follows like at that point like I'm going to bring Urahara would be totally like absolutely confident or like overconfident thinking that they have like according to like the calculation of Urahara like of like more than having more than 1 year like they will be like even after putting down the pounds like it's going through and Urahara would be having like more than enough time to like basically like make it to a Asian as well would be and stop Asian before Asian but select the power of the hope you would be along the lines Urahara would be thinking but like I'm also saying like once Urahara would be making it to like the country of Asian the Asian would be like and would be progressing through that way like Urahara getting that absolute shock to finding news and basically Urahara shockingly finding out that basically Asian has like brilliantly has had like find out some sort of like a different solution as to like basically speeding up like the time required for like the processing of like the power of like the code like I was shockingly realizing that and then like basically it's being like a sudden rush for like Urahara and it's even through to like quickly for the like right to stop Asian but still once again in like the nick of time like basically Asian still finally processing by the time like it's going to be making towards Asian like Asian at that very by that very last few seconds like Asian that by then like only finally processing like the power of the whole video. So like then like Ichigo versus like a Bankai Ichigo or like a Bankai with Ichigo with like that half hollow half soul reaper power, like fight Ichigo fighting off against like a whole Cuba Pacific agent at that point. And like imagine those were multiple scenarios that I'm interpreting right now as for right now and maybe yes, like definitely not into the interested right now as well. Like Urahara fighting traces of Reishi precisely bounced back when like Urahara was like the head of like the research department in like the Soul Society, and considering like, it would definitely have to do with like definitely have to remember that like back then when Urahara was like the head of like the research department back then of the Soul Society back then, like definitely he might have definitely Urahara might have had definitely had like a lot of like assistants, and one of his assistants might have definitely been Mayuri is definitely my favorite person. So so like that only how like precisely when like eventually Urahara was like kicked out of like so pretty precisely Mayuri might have been precisely been also selected. Might have like maybe also have to do with, like might have to do with like Mayuri being like the most promising among like the assistants of like Urahara that might have existed back then. It's definitely my personal impression. And my personal impression is also that basically Mayuri like back when like Urahara was like the head of the research department in like Soul Society, Mayuri might have been like secretly totally going against like even like the rules of like the Soul Society, and might have been doing like Mayuri might have been doing like private and secret experiments that might have been totally even against like the rules of like the Soul Society. It's definitely my personal impression. So like I'm as part of like one of like the uh, as part of like the whole Quincy research, like I'm considering back then like maybe so like I think the realization that like since like Mayuri has already revealed that Mayuri has experimented and researched and experimented on Quincy in like Quincy in like the past, like I was but maybe it would be during that whole experimentation and research that Mayuri was doing in like the past connecting to the Quincy's so like or like I was bring it might have been once like the whole balance between like feel like the twins is like the whole balance between like the human world and like the soul society like that balance like increasing and that way like the once like the soul society had, I think like had given the order to like exterminate all princes. I think as well like maybe it might be then or like it might be during like the experiment like I'm wondering either during one of these time period like I'm wondering Mayuri might have definitely shown up to Earth due to that this mission and basically it might be while Mayuri might have been doing the mission targeting the Quincy's on like the human world might have been when Mayuri might have coincidentally accidentally totally run into or like found about it's definitely my favorite. So like I'm about to write even like the history about like since like Bounce had existed from way back from like the ancient times like uh about to bring like Mayuri has exactly like right Urahara, how Urahara knows of like the history of Bounce, like how Urahara as well as Yoriti knows of the history of Bounce, like definitely Mayuri as well might have only heard of like the history of Bounce, this definitely my preference. So like I was wondering maybe Mayuri might have even not been like that much absolutely a believer of that history of Bounce as well. But Mayuri might have been someone who might have totally questioned like the possibility of like Bounce actually existing and all that. So like about to bring especially while searching for filters in like the human world that back in like the past like my reminder only actually only shortly found a pound instead which definitely was brilliant. So like I'm about to bring and it might have been like an extremely young pound like that might have no like and I was bring definitely like there would be like totally unrevealed secret and unique kind of like serious like superior like seriously strong and unique kind of powers that would be totally exclusive rebound alone. Definitely my was very impressive. So like definitely and like through like the history books of like connecting to Bounce, like Mayuri might have read about this, and even though Mayuri might have been intrigued as to like about having like about being so unique and then having lots of the unique powers, like still about the ring, Mayuri might have not believed like for like Bounce to act of like the all those things that that was running like the being like actually true and being for like the positive sounds actually existing. Just to remember the name. So like it might have been totally a shock for like even Mayori when Mayori might have actually like the Russian past might have ran into a bound in like the human world. Just to remember the name. So like Mayori might have straight away and that bound might have been like an extremely young bound which might have not have grown up grown into its like true power system like this already. So like Mayuri might have the and that bound might have gotten lost and might have been all by itself. So like Mayuri might have seen this bound and might have maybe what Mayuri might have seen might have been this human like basically devouring like the soul like a spirit or something. It's definitely my story impression. So like that way Mayuri that might be like the first sight of Mayuri seeing and shockingly realizing that sounds are actually real. So like I'm going to bring Mayuri might have straight away uh, captured that self bound and Mayuri might have maybe like stealthily taken that bound into the soul that is definitely very much. And I was wondering like but Mayuri might have totally felt that basically Mayuri might have wanted to do like whole experimentations on like the bound for himself. And about the friend Mayuri might have totally felt that basically if Urahara even finds out about Mayuri having captured a bound, then like either Urahara would be maybe getting all the credit, or like Urahara would be like the one doing the experimentation on like the mountain, or like I'm about to bring like Urahara would be getting the news to like the to Genrusai, and maybe like Genrusai might bring out some or like the center politics might even bring out some roles that might even of like Mayuri to like not be able to like want to do his like experimentation on the bounce and everything. Especially since like bounce as well totally devours human souls. So like definitely since like exactly like Quincy and different like bounce as well won't be able to like do the whole ongoing so like different like which sound that way without the conquering without human souls not being like transformed into like the society that way so considering I remind totally fear that since there would be that similarity between bounce as well as will be exactly like the order to order by the society to for like termination of frequencies. This might not definitely happen I think in the past considering similarly the precious sound that basically Mayuri had captured might also might the possibility of that bound being ordered to get exterminated by either genders or resistance model also might be something that Mayuri might have totally feared them. So Mayuri might have totally wanted to experiment and discover all that unique powers of the bounces definitely. Mayuri might have been absolutely curious and so my cousin Priya said in Urahara's research department building basically while Urahara was the head of the research department back in so I think while Urahara might have been what Mayuri might have done after capturing the bonds might have been he might have secretly hidden secretly he might have silenced the mountain somehow and basically might have not taken the bounce light, but he might have sneakily silenced that bound and he might have been secretly conducting experiments on the bound in Urahara's absence. Whenever Urahara might have not been present in Urahara's research department building Mayuri will be secretly whenever absolutely no one might be present in the research department of the research department building of Urahara basically when work would be over and basically when Urahara and the others will be heading back to stir up the reforms in the society. At that point, I'm wondering what Mayuri might be doing. Mayuri might have uh, secretly hidden the captured bound somewhere, maybe in Mayuri's home or and I'm wondering in the middle of the night, Mayuri might have stealthily brought the bound to the lab and basically might have stealthily performed all sorts of experiments on the bound. Is definitely what might have Mayuri done back then. It's definitely one of the remnants. So I'm wondering, it might be Mayuri doing all those experiments each night in secret in the laboratory of for Hara might have what might have happened. So that way and I'm also bring Mayuri might have totally carefully ensured to basically remove all traces of the stealthy experiments of Mayuri as well as the ratio of the bombs. But I'm also bring eventually Mayuri might have made a mistake and basically that might have been how forgot to erase the trace of the few race the few the Reishis of the bound, and that might be how Urahara might have or they found those ratios of the bound from from the area around Urahara's research lab. that when Urahara was like head of the research lab. It's definitely my personal theory on this, which is mainly how Urahara might have found that back then. It's definitely my personal theory on the right now. Also, so according to my program, the pregnant the past, like the distant past, like Mayori might have only captured a pound from like the human world and might have taken it to like secretly taken it to like the Soul Society and secretly might have performed experiments on it. Like I was wondering like actually how exactly Mayori might have been even able to like take a pound, which is actually also like a human, like basically into like the South Society. Like I'm considering like it might have been like my consideration there will be more controversial details about bounce. And one would be that bounce might be like humans that would be like naturally spiritually awakened. Definitely my consideration. So like while in the case of like Ishida as well as like in the case of like Chad as well as like Orihime, they had basically it was like Ichigo's like spiritual pressure that caused like the spiritual awakening for him as well as Chad, which allowed them to be able to like enter into like the society sort of thing. So like I'm considering in the case of the like Bount, I'm considering it might be because of like Bount being like possibly being like naturally spiritually awakened even from birth. Might be the reason for like Mayuri might have been able to like easily transport that Bount from like the human world to like the society back then. That's definitely my consideration. And I'm considering it like right now as for like Yorochi's like confusion and shock as to like her right now witnessing the Bount having like powers to be basically like throw out like the soul, the human soul, like without even like not waiting for like the moment to steal the human soul from the moment of spawn. So like I'm going to bring like definitely it would definitely have to do with like that experiment that Mayuri might have definitely performed on like forcefully performed on like the captured bound in like the distant past from like the human world in like the distant past is definitely my prevention. And like Mayuri might have performed all those experiments and like and about the like it would just be like Mayuri's like strict, inquisitive nature or like curiosity as to like wanting to like know everything about like the things you want to about like things you have heard of like whether it's like quilty or like the bounce like in wanting to like experiment and find out everything about like quilties or like bounce wouldn't just be about like just about like finding out everything about them this price, but also it would be also maybe for like Mayuri to like basically transform himself into like that ultimate maybe like not into like an ultimate warrior, but still I'm wondering like Mayuri might have like maybe like an obsession towards like all these unique powers, like powers that are totally unique. And Mayuri might have this obsession towards like unique powers that are extremely unique. And like Mayuri, like one reason behind like Mayuri doing all these experiments on like the Quincy's as well. Uh, like one personal reason that Mayuri might have had for like performing his like experience or like the Quincy might be to like basically his attempt to like steal the powers of like the Quincy and trying to like make it his own is definitely one of the rebels. So like maybe in like the past like Mayuri might when Mayuri has performed like the experience on Quincy, like Mayuri might have maybe failed at like take like at like basically stealing the powers of the Quincy and making it turning it to like the power of Mayuri's stone. But like I'm still like since like Mayuri has already been revealed there in like the past that basically Mayuri has also some unique powers like Mayuri those powers might have been like gained by Mayuri through like Mayuri like the past possibly having like abducted like all these like unique tribe and basically like surrendered and like stolen powers, their unique powers, and Mayuri might have made Mayuri's own. Definitely, Mayuri might have done that for like a long time in like the past, repeatedly for like multiple times in like the past. Definitely from multiple times in like the past. Definitely, my different. Like I'm just think from once like Mayuri captured like an individual from like the bound tribe, like I was thinking Mayuri might have actually definitely and I'm also like after reading like the history of like the Bount tribe, like from like the recent past, like Mayori might have been fascinated by like the vampire like powers of like the Bount tribe and everything. So vampire like similarities of like the Bount tribe and all that like might have totally like impressed like the villanistic nature of having like Mayori is definitely my personal different. And I'm also bring like Mayori on experimenting like the Bount might have discovered also have unique powers that was like exclusive to like the Bount. And I'm also thinking maybe like Mayori might have even gained might have at that point might have considered stealing those powers and making Mayuri might have gained a lot of such unique powers of like the Bount and made his own. It's also definitely made the revenue. So, like I was wondering, after completing Mayuri might have secretly experimented on the Bount and might have fully completed his like experiment on the Bount. And at that point, I was wondering, even as part of like Mayuri's experiment, like Mayuri, like there would be like that villainous side to like Mayuri who might be only against like wanting peace and all that's definitely the experiment. So like Mayuri might have also done this villain thing after like towards the end of his like experiment, Mayuri might have also done this thing where like he might have only upgraded like the Bount and might have made them stronger. So definitely might have been and Mayuri might have then decided to like release the upgraded and enhanced strength processing bounce back to like the human world to like so that like those bounce would be like eventually like multiplying and like basically eventually creating that much more chaos in like the human world. This might be what like in like a villanistic manner like Mayuri like carelessly might have or like overconfidently might have done is definitely to totally destroy like the peace in like the human world. It's definitely might have very much so like I'm wondering even Mayuri might be like totally aware of like the whole importance of like the balance between like the soul society and like the human world that like neither can exist without another. So like yet, like, while even knowing this, like, Mayuri might be like absolutely or confident in that, like, since like the social society has like so many powerful forces, like they would be like ensuring that that balance always. But still, also like Mayuri definitely due to his builders might just wanted to like create a lot of chaos in like the hidden world, and that might be the reason for like this might have been what Mayuri might have done, and like also like Mayori experimenting on like this bound and basically after this experiment like and upgrading the strength of like the bound like releasing that bound back to like the human world might have been something that might have happened in like the distant past. That's definitely my personal impression. So and also bring it, it might be either that exact bound that basically Yorochi might have seen, or like it might have been like the offspring of that bound that Yorochi might have seen in like the person certainly might have spirit. And then also bring it might have been precisely that upgrade in like strength and powers of like the bound that Mayuri might have experimented and given to those bounds might be like the present whole reason for like your the whole confusion right now with like bound all of a sudden right now Yorochi fighting out about like bound all of a sudden right now having like the power to basically throw out like the soul from human basically without waiting for like the console to like steal the human soul. Basically that added upgrade in like the strength of like the mouse might have been essentially the result of like that experiment that precisely Mayori might have secretly performed on the bound in like the distant past. And that would be like the reason for like Urahara even finding like the Reishi of like bound precisely in his like research lab area that when like Urahara was in like the society serving as like head of the research department. So like all this would be how all that everything would be like connected is definitely my person theory and prediction. So like my person theory and prediction is that like the precise count that basically Yorochi had seen right now in like the present might be like that precise exact count that basically Mayuri might have experimented upon and given that upgraded power in like the distant past. It's like one possibility, or like it would be like the offsprings of that bound. It's definitely the other possibility that I'm thinking. And I was thinking, if it's like the offspring, then I was thinking after like Mayuri upgrading and releasing back that bound to like the human world, like what might have happened would be like the offsprings of that bound might have all gained that upgraded power through which like without waiting for like the console like they would be able to like throw out like the souls of the humans. It's definitely better to range. So like maybe like the like that's like the opportunity that I'm about to bring. Initially when while like the bound might have been few and also bring like right now maybe even like the population of bounds as well might have slowly grown or the years might have grown even more and more. It's definitely might have grown. Maybe it might have been due to like that absolute perfect stealthiness skills of like the mounts that maybe like your team might have not been able. Also like my secondary impression as for like why exactly rounds might be like so few in number when compared to twenties like I'm also putting in the case of twenties like twenties would be like mostly like would have even more similarities to like human than bounds. That's definitely my brother I mentioned like considering like when it comes to like bounce, like even while I'm considering like bounce, you bit only having like all sorts of unique underground powers, like still yet like I'm considering the case of bounce like basically like bounce might not make offsprings like as often as like twinsies or like human and compared to like twinsies as human certainly were to things. This might be like and that coupled with like the reason that like bounce not all bounce to be able to like live on like they had like the initial limitation of like basically only being able to steal human souls precisely during console. So like this might be the precise reason for like about initially possibly being like very few in numbers, like remember everything. But like all that might have totally changed after Mayori might have uh, like uh carelessly and recklessly and in like a business manner like done this like experiment and given that power of grace to the powers that he might have to that precise power that he might have captured through which like about might have gained the ability to act like vampires and basically draw like the soul out of human. So like that way like I'm considering like even though like Mount number might have been like very few, like the offerings of that bound each of them might have naturally had this power, like this upgraded power. So definitely have a very so like that way, like even though their numbers, like the numbers of like the ones might have slowly with like scaling of human souls being that much more easier for bounds, like I'm wondering bounds might have the rate of like bounds might have reduced sharply. And that way like the population of like the bounds might have slowly started like increase more and more over the years. And at those different like it might have increased to like the point where it might have eventually became noticeable. It's definitely visible, and that might be how like the right now like the presence of bounce in like the world of living was like totally even noticeable for Yoriki. It's definitely Yoriki even finding out about bounce presence like when being like sense like something unusual and all that might have happened only due to like eventually like the bounce population like increasing more and more to the point that was detectable even for uh, Yoriki. Like that might be what might be happening right now and what might have happened, especially my personal impression. And so like definitely my personal impression right now is that like since I think like even Rukia as well has revealed that she has lived for like I think like hundreds or even more years like basically like since like sword reapers can like basically I think like basically live for like hundreds and hundreds of years like I'm thinking maybe sword reapers might be able to like live for thousands of years like yet like I'm thinking like maybe still it's I'm thinking like the world of maybe sword reapers still not being like absolutely immortal. It wouldn't just be sword reapers not be invincible that basically if someone attacks it wouldn't just be like the my consider emperor's affect the possibility that not just fighting and taking the life of like a sword reaper being like the only ways in which like a sword reaper dies, but like sword reaper possibly like even though sword reapers would be like live for hundreds of possibly even thousands of years, like still sword reapers being susceptible to diseases and sword reapers even having like the most death like dying of old age yet their aging progress will be like so extremely slowed down or like the course or like the span of hundreds of thousands of years. Like the possibility that other possibility that ever occurred. And hence those different like maybe of like the possibility that maybe biogas whites have not having to do with like any with like someone deadly poisoning or causing any sort of uh, external health issue. Um, resulting in Hisana's death. Like maybe like I'm going to bring maybe like the possibility that of like Hisana actually dying due to actually um due to diseases that were caused by any villain or anybody else. So like if that's the scenario, then and if that's the according to my personal impression right now, I'm just trying of like the possibility that they really of so like it's not being like absolutely immortal, but like them even though they will be able to like live for so long for like maybe hundreds of thousands of years, still they're not being like immune to that. Then my personal impression right now is that basically the precise abduction of one of about that according to my personal way that might have definitely happened in the distant past and it might have happened precisely due to only coincidentally running into about only by accident. Back when Mayuri might have been might have gone to a to like capture films or something for his like film experiment. Like they will, this is my theory, and I'm going to present such if such a scenario might have happened, then my person theory emerges and like right. Considering these theories and considered only my taking the theories are considering maybe like the precise reason for like if Mayuri has in the past like might have thought like about like the experiments performed on the bout might be like maybe like Mayuri by performing like the experiments on like the Mayuri might have made it like one of his like biggest priority, especially since like the history of Bount might have even been present from like the way different past elections like bounds are even compared to vampires and like, everything like since bounds themselves were one called as vampires at one point. So like I'm considering like since like bounds might also only existed from a very long time in like the ancient past like so since like the history of bounds might not only be in present since the soul society as well from like a long time. So like since like Mayori might have known about like this unique power of sound using the which like they would be able to like by like absorbing human souls like them being able to like live like an immortal. Since like immortality is something that like according to my personal theory, it's like it's even unreachable to like even soul reapers as well. Then my personal impression is that like if like Mayori might have abducted about in like the system path, then like my biggest goal behind that abduction might have not just be even more than learning a lot about like bounce and the unique bounce and everything. Like the biggest priority I'm considering for Mayori might have been for like for Mayori to like possibly like be able to like achieve like the power of like the power of basically being able to like absorb human souls and that way like to gain immortality that way like for Mayori to like in such a manner to like experiment and trying to like make the powers that possess power of like the power of the stone so that like Mayori can live forever and turn himself into an immortal. Maybe this intent like Mayori might have experimented on that fountain like the past it's also like a positive that I'm doing only protect. So I'm positive, especially with like even Ethan states right now, with like Ethan being able to Ethan right now like about to like trying to like achieve like the ultimate power effect of Holy maybe like I'm considering Ethan's dreams and desires might be not like limited to just being like the strongest in like the world. Maybe Ethan as well might have his own role as well. Like Jason as well, Spring would be well and fully aware of the history of Spawn. So like maybe like Jason as well might possibly have this idea in his mind that like right now currently like the first goal of Jason would be precisely to like achieve like the ultimate power of the Holy so that at that point Jason would only believe that absolutely no one in like the world in like any universe in like absolutely no one like whether it's like society like the human world or like even like the world of all like absolutely no one would be able to stop Aeson at that point if Aeson reflects about how the would be what Aeson will be thinking so that at that point for like Aeson to like focus all of this like uh, attention then to precisely gain immortality through like the Bount. And like Acer might be totally planning on it, especially since like definitely Acer might have already teamed up with like Mayuri like before like Ethan even escaped from like the society to like the world of all of like Ethan definitely would have totally teamed up and like even like Ethan like revealed about like Ethan's like fast follow experiments like that might have all been done not by Ethan who might have actually not at all be a scientist or like would have like he might would definitely not have like the knowledge or intelligence to like basically actually perform experiments or anything. So like definitely for Jason to be able to like perform all those follow experiments like Jason might not have really sought like the help of Mayuri. So like Jason and Mayuri might have been a team from way back then. It's definitely my betrayal. This might be the precise reason for like Mayuri not even being shocked at the realization of like Jason being like Jason's like betrayal and Jason still being alive and all that. So also definitely my betrayal. So especially because like even back then like Jason and Mayuri might have been a team. It's definitely my betrayal. So like my personal impression said, like even though internet as Mayuri might have teamed up in like the bomb, then considering like Mayuri acts of basically affecting like the bomb, which might have happened even way before that. Like and I'm considering like after like the experiments that Mayuri might have performed on like the bound, I'm considering Mayuri might have actually gained like the power of like the bound to be able to like absorb human souls and basically to be able to like live forever. also definitely my preference. So like there will be that absolute vampire side towards like Mayuri is definitely my preference. Which will be totally unrevealed right now is definitely my preference. So like I was saying right now, in like the present Mayuri might be and it like the only immortal. So right, it's definitely my preference. While Hazel would be like and Hazel would be totally unaware of like all these things about like Mayuri like the past have gained experimented or like captured about being lucky enough to that be like run into a bound and like basically the fact that like Mayuri in like the past have really experimented and thrown out like the power of like the bounce and made it his own like and Mayuri the fact that Mayuri is like an immortal it's definitely Mayuri's favorite which should be one thing that Mayuri might have also hidden from Asian as well. It's definitely my favorite. So like Asian would be totally unaware of this. And right now, even to the present, it's definitely my favorite. And right now, even in the present, as Asian is like chasing after like the uh, after of chasing after of and wanting to like the greatly obtain like the ultimate power with only to like Asian very next goal would be like precisely capture, find and capture a bound and basically to seek Mayuri's help to like basically to like that way for like my to like experiment on the bound and that way for Ethan to like achieve more that way. This would be like Ethan's plan right now as well as definitely Michael to mentioned. So like I was bringing Mayuri on the other hand would be totally gently planning on betraying Ethan at that point, especially my Ethan by keeping the secret that Mayuri has already succeeded in that experiment and has achieved immortality from above. Like basically Mayuri might be stealthily planning on keeping that secret from Ethan. Definitely also definitely my preference. And maybe like Mayuri might also want to be like a ruler and ruler like uh, maybe like Mayuri might have all sorts of plans. Like maybe like Mayuri might be totally planning that lately, even though right now like Ethan so like already even without power because with the power of the 42 Ethan is already so extremely brilliant and extremely strong. Like Mayuri would be when I'm fully aware that like right now bringing down Ethan would be like totally mission impossible for Mayuri would be one thing Mayuri might be totally aware of. But like Mayuri plan would be to like totally patiently wait it out and wait it out and patiently wait until like Ethan would be like eventually dying of old age or like diseases. So that like at that point once Nathan dies for like once that Nathan would be like at the on the verge of his death. Like for at that point for like Mayuri to like basically chase after Jason and for like Mayuri to like bring down Jason and basically steal like the whole view from like the Jason from Jason might be like Mayuri possible plan is also like in the Michael reality. So that like at that point Mayuri would have achieved like immortality as well as like the power of the Oppo like at that point Mayuri would get only unstoppable, and so that like Mayuri would be able to have that achieve. This would be Mayuri's goal to achieve that absolute freedom with which like Mayuri can do anything in like the world he wants, like do any sort of villainous experiments or whatever, and there would be absolutely no one that would be a reflection of Mayuri at that point. It's definitely this would be like possibly Mayuri's goal is also definitely my favorite. So it's like right now Mayuri would be totally feeling so simply constricted and totally feeling as if like he lacked a lot of freedom in being able to like do his like experiments in like the in like that extreme villainous manner as he pleases like so like there will be the Mayuri will be totally feeling that absolute restriction in his like freedom to like perform like experiments as he pleases. So like to achieve this like absolute freedom might also be like a huge factor in like Mayuri on top of like desiring for immortality which like obviously would be one thing that Mayuri might have already might have wanted to always be able to like stay to not die and basically to like keep doing all of this like experiments that is so up of like basically forever would be always one goal of Mayuri. But on top of that, like to be able to like do any experiments that Mayuri plays with like in order to show that like Mayuri would might be think that he would definitely need the ultimate power of the Homicide. So like in order to achieve that he would have to like patiently wait it out and wait it out until like Ethan basically eventually like basically starts to like get finally like near like the verge of that so that like at that point like Mayuri will be able to like easily bring down Ethan and steal the whole issue. Would be like Mayuri's plans that remember it. So like I'm remembering Mayuri would be also foreseeing such a possibility that like the Ethan like Ethan so brilliant like Mayuri would be also expecting like the possibility of like maybe like Ethan or like Ethan might have already then beforehand might have told Mayuri about like Ethan's like ultimate goal even after processing like the whole able to like basically like find a bound and basically to see like the immortality from bound and Ethan might have told Mayuri that they both can be immortal at that point. and you can be like my top headsman. And either might have told Mayuri that like I will at that point you have like that absolute freedom to do any experiment you want. But like that simply wouldn't be enough at all for like Mayuri, which like Mayuri will be like automatically at the freak of competition. So like Mayuri's plan would be to like usually at that point, even after like Aizen will be probably like the whole like at that point when like Aizen will be telling Mayuri to like Aizen will be trying to even if Aizen finds a bound like still then for and even gives a bound to like Mayuri to do the experiment like even then for like Mayuri to like patiently like to patiently waste away all the time and totally to trick Aizen into like making Aizen think that basically like obtaining like the power of uh, power of like immortality from above is like something that's like totally impossible and that way to like only trick and stall out how a time and like basically until like Jason reaches like the world that so that like my Mayuri could be like the ultimate immortal ruler would be like Mayuri's secret ultimate the goal is definitely my version right now. Yeah, so like definitely my version right now is definitely going through like hunting for like the bounds with like the more so like I'm considering like right now definitely, I'm considering among like the three ports, like I'm considering to be precisely in there, and that I'm considering to be precisely in that. Eventually, I'm considering in that funds for like the bounce. I'm considering eventually there precisely getting tricked and basically being getting captured by one of the pounds. Like the scenario that I'm considering, and I'm considering like even Urahara would be like straight away assuming that maybe assuming that like uh, uh, assuming what he knows of like the bounce from like the history, like the past history or like the past books that were Hara might have read of like the bounce. But like I'm sorry, after my Yuri's like experiment which might have only happened on like the bounce, like the recent past, like I'm sorry, the bounce might have changed a lot and might have had so like the limit of the impressions that like the experiment that Mayuri might have done on like the bounce in like the recent past, like the powers that might have get that they have gained might not just be reduced to like basically them being able to like directly draw out like human souls, but like I'm referring they would be also from that experiment of Mayuri, like bounce might also be able to like directly absorb like more souls as well. And basically, like even absorbing more souls as well would be like serving like the same effect of basically them being able to like continue on living as a normal. It's definitely my personal remembers. So like I'm referring this could be like a huge factor in like which eventually would be resulting in like Indian precisely getting captured by getting targeted and getting captured by that precise uh, by the precise by one of like the precise bound and I'm referring maybe it could be like the very same female bound that your riches or like I'm going to bring are shortly usually like tracking or it's going to and all of them and have certainly targeting learn and start capturing learn and start absorbing like the most or learn is like the winter scenario that I'm going to bring and that way like learn like this captain learn that who was like such an important person uh about a prominent person like all this like recent days in like it's going through like basically her quick disappearance and quick death. That way, like, Ambassador is still totally shocked what's going through, and that way, like, them shockingly realizing that absolute seriousness of like the whole current bound situation in such a manner. It's like the eventual scenario that I'm looking. So, like, definitely, I'm still sitting in the mind of the so that the rain will be able to process more so that I'm preferring to be most likely dying by the bound. A real soul is definitely the scenario that I'm not the protect. And my personal it's like a living introduction right now is that basically back when like Urahara they found the Reishi like tip particles in around like Urahara like research lab like I'm referring like back then like what Urahara might have been Urahara might have taken that process Reishi samples and might have represents that like definitely most likely I think that basically the Reishi side of that sword reapers would be different from that of like Quincy's it's definitely a good representation. So the Pacific there might have been already like because like the experimentations on like maybe not the experimentation but like studies on Quincy's all that might have been going on even back then. That were around like the head of like, the research department. So like I'm just maybe like they might have collected like Reishi samples of Quincy's and like Reishi samples of Quincy's might have been already present in that research lab of Urahara back then is definitely my good memories. So like Urahara might have cross-checked and compared like suspicious ratios like found around like Urahara's lab and with like the sample ratio of that of like twinsies, and it might have definitely not matched. So like Urahara might have does that initially Urahara might have tried to like compare that found Reishi with like the ratio of Puerto Rico, and it might have definitely not matched. Then Urahara might have tried that to like see like that suspicious Reishi match with like the ratio of twinsies, and that as well didn't match. So like at that point, Urahara might have only thought that if it's not a soul reaper, if that ratio doesn't belong to neither a soul reaper nor a twinsie, then basically Urahara at that point, like from Urahara knowledge that Urahara had back then, like at the Urahara might have only felt that maybe into the present, like Urahara might not know of like any other unique tribe with like a ratio that would be like different from that. That's like other tribes having like a ratio that's like only different from the type of ratio that of like disorder because or like definitely maybe so like bounce would be like the through like Urahara's knowledge of like reading like the history about bounce like Urahara might the only knowledge Urahara might have had back then would be that basically that Bount is like the tribe that has like Reishi type that's like different from that of like soul people as well as like which is might have been along the lines Urahara might have the knowledge that Urahara might have had back then. So like other than Bount, like Urahara might have not known of any other different racial type like that had racial that was different to like so people and like in the Japanese reference. So like I was pretty like Urahara might have only had that feeling that like it might have definitely been the ratio of a sound. So like I'm considering but like Urahara might have maybe been confused as like how exactly Reishi Reishi ratio of like bounce like might have gone up around like Urahara flag. So like I'm considering maybe like Urahara might have totally eventually figured out that basically it was like precisely Mayuri's doing that had basically the reason for like those Reishi process that so like maybe Urahara might have figured that basically Mayuri had been like stealthily like doing secret experiments and like so like Mayuri might have brought like brought about into like an experiment on like Urahara's lab without like Urahara's knowledge. That might be like one thing that Urahara might have realized, but like the moment Urahara might have realized that might have been also coincidentally, unfortunately for Urahara might have been like a great moment where like Urahara might have even got kicked out from the Soul Society and was forced to like live in like the human world. It's definitely might have been so like I'm also bring like things then like and I'm also bring precisely like during that time when like O'Hara found that a suspicious Reishi in like that place uh, uh around like O'Hara's lab. Like at that point itself I'm also bring like O'Hara might have felt that strange spiritual presence or like a spiritual pressure or something that basically precisely Yorichi precisely had felt precisely when Yorichi had shown up to like the human world precisely after rescuing Russia like the fact that like Eurogy as well felt something strange in like the human world. Precisely the moment Eurogy had came from like the soul society to after seeing Rukia from like the soul society to the human world. She's like Eurogy herself was able to like detect that like suspicious like strange difference like I'm going to bring like Hara might have definitely been able to like sense that because even beforehand it's definitely my good friend. So like I'm going to bring even before like Israel Crow had basically saved Russia and basically run back to like the human world along with like Europe. Even before that, like I was very poor, I remember my government basically been able to sense that there's strange difference or like a presence or like a not presence but like a spiritual pressure, some sort of like a variation or something. Which like the last time or Hara might have experienced such a similar thing might have been precisely when like Orahara back when like Urahara had found that her features of Reishi in like back when like in like the Soul Society back around like Urahara's like research like back in like, the Soul Society that when Urahara was like the head of like, the research department, especially when Urahara was so like I was bring precisely because of like Urahara sensing that very same kind of like strange spiritual variation or something like all across like the area like I'm considering like Urahara might have straight away like at that point itself like Urahara might have straight even before like Ichigo and Crow and Yorichi have turned back from first like even before that like Urahara might have straight away created these three monsters with the clear by installing that precise ratio detecting uh, system onto like those three modes, so like Darin, Karudo, and Nova. And Urahara might have actually created them with like the actual original intent to like safely detect if the ratios and find out to find in order to find out if like it's actually Urahara's suspicion is actually right and if they are actually found that basically are right now in like the hidden world like that basically Urahara is sensing like basically so like that way Urahara that intent might have created these three modes of the Stephanie reversion. So like I'm referring these three modes also might have been sent off by Urahara on the hunt to like the Reishi detecting system. They might have gone on the hunt to like basically to like find what is like strange various in the script for example like and it would be coincidentally around that time that it needs to go through along with the Yoriki might have returned from like the society after being yeah it will return back from like society is definitely memorable. So like I'm considering since like Urahara might have been only expecting like the possibility of like bounce only being present in like the human world right now and maybe of like even great number like maybe like Haramaita might have got that feeling. So like I was thinking Haramaita might have decided to like really prepare to went through up and really train them and get them stronger with these three modes of like also simultaneously doing by like making like the three modes of do that for traveling and all that like really while simultaneously with the Reishi detecting system as well to like simultaneously do like the whole stuff thing of like the routes as well as training is going through might have been what Sohara might have done back then. It's definitely was and that's like you're already showing up and you're just straight away detecting that strange pistol variation or something like that. Or Hara might have been totally pleased that basically with like you already showing up, like you already would be mostly taking care of like the rest of like the Reishi hunting and all that. Might have been one like Urahara might have felt it's definitely memorable for immersion. So like and that exactly happening with like Yorichi basically getting the help of like soy porn and everything happening naturally and conveniently for her might have been what might have happened. It's definitely my personal impression. So definitely my personal impression is that precisely because it will be precisely because of like Urahara even back in like the recent past when Urahara was like the head of like the research department in like the Soul Society when Urahara had found this like suspicious like Reishi and might have definitely crop checked, right like crop checked and see if it matches with like the ratio of like the soul reaper or like the ratio of like a 20 and it might have definitely not matched. So like I'm considering at that point with like Urahara only suspecting like the possibility of that ratio being that of like a bound like Urahara might have only decided to like slightly preserve that ratio in like the society even back then, which definitely my opinion. And this would be the precise reason for like Yorachi even on eventually finding like right now eventually even finding like the Reishi from like the human world and that Yorachi is even being able to like send the data of collected of that Reishi to like the source society and basically with like Kitake and the others like basically Hitsuga and the others like being able to like compare the ratios from and the what they might not know would be like the as like how they confirm the data as to like that being like found like I'm considering like it would be precisely through them most likely having compared the ratio that like Yoriji just recently found in like the human world with uh, the ratio that precisely Urahara might have only found outside his like research lab in that distant past and like they might have only compared these two ratios and they really might have confirmed that it's like the ratio of that of like to be most likely the ratio of that of a bond is definitely very good, especially with like Yoriji even having seen like basically that woman like basically like absorbing like the soul, human soul, like basically with all these like details collectively like considering like they might have been able to like almost fully confirm that it's like about it's definitely my open to the answer. So like this would be the reason for like Urahara knowing even beforehand, even before Yoriji like Urahara even knowing beforehand that basically for the, and the possibility of bounce process and that way like Urahara even before like your journey to go through like even to come back to like from like the society like your routine I mean before like your routine and it's going through like return back from like the society after doing rescue after rescuing yeah and by the time like your routine as well as it's going through even return back to like even by then like Urahara already being prepared with the three modes also having their whole ratio detecting system installed in it for her even being prepared even beforehand would be precisely in such a manner as definitely not of the impression. Okay, so like definitely we're very impression right now as for like precisely okay take as well as like Hitsuga and like right now simultaneously being totally shocked in like the theoretic library and the it could be precisely because of like the right now and the bring the situation would be like them totally shockingly finding like or each and every single one of like the books that might have totally contain like all the details connecting to that might have been recorded from history connecting to Bount, like specifically each and every single books that have details connecting to just Bounce. Those books alone like totally completely going missing. Those exact books alone going completely going missing in like the CRIT laboratory would be like what might have right now shown both Hitsugaya as well as Ichitake right now. It's like my personal theory and prediction that it will exactly Mayuri is doing. It's definitely my personal prediction. Exactly because like right now the Mayuri might be like totally planning something with like the bounce right now in like the human world. There's also definitely a possibility that I'm considering. So like I'm considering like as part of that plan of Mayuri might be the reason for like Mayuri might be wanting to like even gain even more knowledge connecting to like bounce right now like for like what the proposed plan that Mayuri would be planning on executing right now. It's also like definitely connecting to the bounce. It's also like a positive that I'm going to bring and hence why like Mayuri would be like right now definitely leading all those like books definitely connecting to bounce right now. It's definitely my go to the impression. So like that would be the best reason for like I'm considering the looks might connecting to bounce alone like might have gone missing only just now, especially when the friends like lot of the people in like the other sources in like the library might have nobody else might have realized about like the books connecting to like bounce along going with it. It's also definitely my very impression. Okay, so like definitely my very impression right now as for like what's on ending up in like chat form right now. I'm trying to be only due to like almost likely having ran away from like a zero home. Yeah, precisely and what might have happened to me precisely with like they're not liking any of like the dolls that it was like only showing her like I'm considering that Darren might be I'm considering to might have only told Ichigo that like he wants like he might have only quickly notice like count right there and I'm considering that there might have only like count dolls so like I'm considering there might have only demanded that like he wanted to like for this count doll and basically that way like even though and then my consideration that like even though like Quan might have in fact like always like I think like in the past like has complained about like his his like doll like body like I'm going deep down like by now like this like having spent so much time in this like Quan having spent so much time in this like doll teddy bear doll like body like I'm going to a god Quan might have by now grown so much extremely fond to this like teddy bear like body with the fundamental premises for like right now deep down so right now the last thing Quan would want for him to like basically lose his like teddy bear like body and basically him being put on to like some other stuffed animal body would be like the last thing thought would want us definitely when we and this might be the precise reason for like Corn might have totally but when Corn might have totally ran away there at that point like okay so like definitely this is a theory and principle right now with like right now chasing after like the bounce movement like and coincidentally precisely that the precise books it should be precisely related to bounce specifically those exact books within like the serity library going precisely coincidentally missing during this precise time. Not considering like that really right now with like Ichigo like with like whole chase of like Ichigo up like that precise bound movement like that I'm considering would be like a trap set for Ichigo. Not just Ichigo but like, mostly but it wouldn't just be a trap for Ichigo alone, maybe it would be a trap for like Ichigo as well as like it was friends as well, like Chad as well as organization as well. Maybe it's also like I'm going to bring definitely like right now, it's definitely right now at this moment it will be I'm going to bring like a trap specifically set for Ichigo. This may be what I'm going to bring and I'm going to bring it will be a trap most likely set by precisely by Mayuri's definitely mental parameters. Like on Mayuri's orders like I'm going to bring maybe like this Bount would be right now doing everything she's doing. That's definitely my brain question. That's like also like a possibility that I'm also doing. So like this Bount woman would be right now running her running away from like Ichigo would be like her trying to like to safely lure Ichigo into the precise location of like the precise spot where the ultimate trap would be set by Mayuri. It's like kind of like a remote possibility that I'm possibility and my doctor like okay, so like definitely with the represent right now with Black Ichigo right now fighting against this Bount at the certain outcomes of the trailer. Like I'm predicting right now, my other possible positive impression that right now that I'm making is definitely for like a possibility that like even like the whole Bount situation being like the next gimmick and next trick that Urahara will be totally using to totally maybe trick it not only Ichigo and through once again, but also trick Yorichi as well in the process to totally strengthen them up. Like I'm considering like especially since like the whole Yorichi showing up and remaining about like the situation of like the mountain, like all that happening precisely while Urahara was telling Ichigo about like uh Ichigo like important to like train Ichigo to like get stronger and all that, like basically to eventually get the Homichi and all that, like since like the revelation of Pound by that your recharge precisely happened precisely during that moment. Like I'm considering, and then I'm considering that really maybe, but still like Yoriji might be totally unaware of like the strategy of Urahara. It's also like a possibility that I'm considering. And I'm considering maybe like I'm considering Yoriji might have been only it might have only been able to like Yoriji might have only been able to like figure out about like this whole thing possibly being like Urahara next trickery of like a training set for like Ichigo and through Yoriji maybe might have only been able to figure that out when like Yoriji had asked like Urahara about like basically uh Urahara's like three more souls like already having like their whole Reishi detecting system like installed onto them even beforehand like basically while Yoriji questioned Urahara about that like was it like and I think and my preparation that like maybe it would be at that point that you already might have uh, had a feeling that basically this would be like the next break of Warhara who would train Ichigo and most definitely my perspective. And that's like the possibility that I'm leaning more towards. It's definitely my perspective. And this would be like the reason for like this precise bound totally acting different from like how it actually said maybe in like the books about like bounce how like can only steal can only steal like the souls of humans precisely while in like the process of like someone doing like a corner. So it's definitely my document. As for right now, for like the current count, like acting in a totally different manner and basically being able to like absorb like the souls of humans without like directly and those different like definitely the soul absorption might be something that like absolutely none of them might have actually witnessed this definitely never pyramid. But like I was wondering all these like people that like that precise woman who's like supposed to be like the bound like I was wondering like all those targets that like individual targets that she had basically attacked. I was wondering they might have definitely known, right? Like I was wondering that precise woman I was wondering would be like would be like also like exactly like how Naren Nova and Karano were created by Urahara. I'm considering her would be like Urahara's like I'm considering like Karano Nova as well as Naren would be like the initial stage or like initial phase of like the training that Urahara might have planned for like it's going through. By the time it's going through, would be like returning back from like Soul Society precisely, and it might have been done like started set in motion by that preparations might have started by Ohana precisely from like the moment Ohana might have learned of like the news that basically of Ethan stealing the Holy Q and having like left to like the world of horror is definitely a good revelation. So like from that point, then like Orhara might have decided not to like waste any time at all and straight away begin the training of Ichigo and Kuro, which is definitely a good revelation. So like Orhara might have started preparing even before that. Long before Ichigo and Kuro returned back from like the Soul Society after saving Rukia. Even before they returned back to like the human world, like I was doing, Orhara might have straight away begin his like training preparation for it to go through by precisely for creating like the three modules like Learn, Nova, and Karuro. And then like he might have also created like the four um, module which like he might have modified the fourth module. Like it might not be at all like a normal module, but like it might be like an advanced version of like a some a unique creation of that kind of like a module might be along the lines like the thing how like Urahara might have created like the four module it's definitely my perception. That module would be the current precise woman who's like accused of being like about the definitely my perception. So like I was she too did only plan playing the part of like Urahara's like cricket strategy to like definitely train Ichiban was definitely my perception right now as for like what will be happening right now is definitely my perspective. So like I'm going to bring uh and I'm going to bring like the precise people that she had attacked like basically for those humans to like only get tired and fall down. I'm going to bring like that would be solely due to like that special power that like precisely Urahara might have precisely added on to her while creating that special mode. So it's definitely my big driver. Urahara might have added some sort of like a unique power to her through which like she might be able to like drain out like the power of like the individual that she possesses the element variables. So like that way to like create that false false image false like um, so that that way to like it's going to provide even your chance to totally create that false like reality or like a false feeling as if like basically that woman is like actually about that basically by attacking all these humans like she's like actually taking away the human souls and everything basically would be like this like framing of like the would be like that has to trick that basically or Hara would be like totally playing or it's going through and Yoriki is definitely my book so like I'm referring Yoriki might have precisely abandoned Yoriki's search of like the bound precisely after like I'm considering like so like my consideration is that like Yoriki might have precisely abandoned Yorichi's like hunt for like separate hunt for like the found precisely when Yorichi might have figured that basically this might have definitely like the whole situation with like the found was just definitely just like Urahara like trick just to like train is going through. Definitely might have preparation. Definitely think by now Yorichi might have only figured that out. And that will be the precise rating for like Yorichi right now not being alongside each other through on the hunt for like the precise sound right now is definitely in like the percent is definitely not observation. That's for like Urahara precisely even removing Ishida from like the current team of like Ichigo to, with like the three modes or to precisely capture like the bound like was different to capture or take down the bound to do precisely because of like Urahara precisely knowing how cunning and brilliant like Ishida is that like Urahara might have totally felt that basically if Ishida is like present along with like Ichigo and through, then Ishida would be quickly figuring out that basically even this as well from that basically even the bound situation as well being like the next tricking player on them that by Urahara actually that successfully trained them like Urahara might be only fearing the possibility of like so that quickly figuring it out. And that would be the precise reason for like Urahara deciding to like keep Ishida out of just like current trainings by telling the kind of like the excuse as of like the reason being like if I not having any power currently, 20 powers currently, luckily my consideration. So like what is Sorahara might have done as for like to strict like even like the people in like the Soul Society and the brain maybe like to make things look that much convincing and the maybe like even like the missing of like the books connecting to precisely bounds in like the theory library and to bring that to be precisely according to like Urahara's orders and to bring Urahara might have only maybe like it might be even to say that the Kyoraku and to bring maybe like Urahara might have secretly found Kyoraku and maybe it would be like even by Kyoraku right now is that might be even pretending as if it's like tired and prospective while maybe like Kyoraku might have been precisely Kyoraku according to like Urahara's orders like definitely Urahara might have still have like that friendship with like not just um yeah with like only with Kyoraku's definitely might have so like I'm referring to Urahara might have remained like the whole. situation, and like that absolute need to like train Ichigo and stealthily train Ichigo and go and get them strong as soon as possible so that like they could like eventually bring back like the Togepi. Like Ohara might have stealthily formed Yoriko and revealed all this to like Yoriko. Stealthily made those reemerge. So through the soul phone of whatever device that Urahara would be having, with which like Urahara would be able to like communicate from like the human world to like the south like in the pyramid. So like I'm related to that way like Urahara might have told this plan to like Yoriko. And I'm also considering it might have been theoretical that might have precisely taken away like that precise, those exact precise books from like the series library just now connecting to like the precise bound to the kilometer to make things look that much more convincing. It's the kilometer. So like I'm wondering maybe it might have been and my theory and prediction as for like the precise thing that precise thing that Urahara said so like if you went through and you already that basically as for like Urahara in like the distant past while Urahara was uh, serving as like the head of like the research department, like O'Hara having found that precise Reishi that belonged to Bount, like basically that part alone, like O'Hara might have not lied at all. It's definitely also might have been reversing, but like what O'Hara might have done right now would be to like precisely to even trick Yorichi as well, so that like it went through would be like so that like the situation with like the mountain would look that much more convincing for it went through. Like maybe like so like maybe for like maybe Urahara might have also wanted to train Yorichi as well in the office as well. It also and sharpen like the skills of like Yorichi as well. Might have been something that Urahara might have tried to. It's also recommended for it, especially because of like Yorichi having been out of touch when it comes to like combat and skills and missions for like a while until just now recently, like the Ponderosia mission, rescue mission, while considering like Urahara on the other hand might have been like secretly and stealthily without no one realizing might have been stealthily sharpening his skills consistently, even while simultaneously continuing with all of this like experiments and everything. It's also definitely a possibility or like my person theory and prediction that I'm making right now. It's definitely my prediction. So like maybe Urahara might have also wanted to try your Richie as well, so like I'm also trying as to like how exactly Urahara might have only strict your Richie as well as Soy Font would be like possibly how I'm going to bring like what Urahara might have done might have been like when I'm going to bring like before like Soypon had basically left like the soul society and was departing to help Yorishio. Like even before that, and was departing that what Urahara might have done might have been maybe like Urahara might have totally since like according to my memory, those departing like Urahara might have maybe only told about his plan, even with like the bound situation as well. With like by faking a bound situation as well, like this plan of Urahara, maybe Urahara might have according to my personal theory, might have totally told to like just Kyoraku alone. So like maybe it might have been Kyoraku that might have Ohara might have told Kyoraku to basically collect that precise Reishi sample, like that precise Reishi sample which would be that of like the actual bound that basically Ohara might have found in like the half in around like Urahara like laboratory research laboratory back when like Urahara was like head of like the research department. That research sample like like Urahara might have safely preserved in somewhere in like that lab. Like maybe like Urahara might have found like your own like your to like gently collect those a bit of like those ratio samples and basically to uh, basically scatter both and then for like to like simply show up to like the human world and basically scatter those ratio samples in like a specific location. So like I'm considering those very same exact ratio samples like a portion of it might have been what like I'm considering maybe like or like Kyoraku might have only delivered those ratio samples to like Urahara stealthily, and like Urahara might have been like the person that might have scattered those like remaining portion of like a big portion of like that ratio samples on somewhere in like the human world. And that might have been what like Yorichi as well as Soyfon while they were desperately searching for like the found like they might have found in like the human world and they might have sent the one that sample that they had sent for testing to like the Pitake, which like Ukitake had confirmed might have been like the very same sample and that way like even Ukitake as well as Isuke as well that way and I would like Yoriji, all of them like being tricked by Urahara into thinking that like an actual bound has shown up. and basically to solidify that whole substitution towards like Bount, like other trickery, that absolute trickery, like that final touch that Urahara might have played might have been precisely ensuring that precise, like modified mode soul, like that unique mode soul that Urahara might have created to create that scene where like so that like your ritual would only by your ritual would only finding that special mode soul with like and I'm especially because of like being like a special mode soul like probably something like it would only be a special module created specially by Urahara. And Urahara might have created it in such a manner that like its spiritual pressure would be like only be different to like the spiritual pressure of like the remaining three modules like Karuro, Nova, and Mary so like that way, like while Koikon and like you already have found that woman in that whole railway like area like basically according to like Urahara plant might have probably been attacking that individual and basically to make it appear as if like convincing enough as if like she's like that woman who might have been just a special mortal with like a slightly different physical structure like it's like actually trying to like frame her into trying to like make her uh, seem like a bound like basically that way like Urahara might have pulled off his like master plan the entire time it's definitely my favorite and that way trick like everyone including like Yorochi Michitake Hitsugaya as well as like Ichigo and Kuro. It's definitely my favorite version. So like I'm considering like I'm considering like and also my considering versions like Karuro, Nova and Daryl would be like might also be like fully when I'm fully aware of like Kurahara trickery plan to like train Ichigo and Kuro and Yoroichi and all of them. It's definitely my favorite. So like I'm considering this like a ratio detector like this the ratio detector being like installed onto like Karuro, Nova and Daryl like I'm considering like them would be like right now probably playing according to like Kurahara's like strategical trickery of like this one through and basically they will be like the three of like those three monsters will be like also putting on their absolute fake convincing kind of like an act to trick each one through and that way chasing after like basically and finding like precisely that precise special monster who would be like who right now if you go and through will be like only assuming that basically is like a sound is definitely my person very precious. So like right now with like Ichigo right now fighting off against that woman who's like who's Ichigo thinks is like about would be like even that fight of Ichigo would be like the precise training, stealthy training that Urahara might have intended for Ichigo right now. It's definitely my personal favorite for like to train Ichigo to like once again be able to like access to learn to make Ichigo learn how to once again use this like Bankai powers. Like this would be like that absolute training that part of that absolute training that like Urahara would be right now giving to like Ichigo and through definitely my personal question right now. So like Matilda Dungri and Brunson right now that basically right now with that Ichigo fighting against that woman who was sent out like who's supposed to be about and sent out with like creature that like Ichigo's like right now fighting off against like that would be like Ichigo's training trickery tricks content training that Urahara right now meant for like Ichigo while right now with like chat as well as like for him like seeing this like body that like turning into ducks. Like basically that would be also like a fake body that would be might have definitely be created by Urahara to only make it appear as if like basically a bound has basically taken that absorb like the that human soul of that person definitely like my person remembers. So like right now in that precise like go down like place like I'm going to bring like the next special module like with that different special browser like that special module which like Urahara might have created precisely for like channel or image for their training would be like right now showing up as if and putting on the fake act as if like about definitely my training to which like that trap to which like that really chat as well as organize would be totally falling for exactly like Ichigo and I'm also bring like Chad as well as Orchimedes training would be happening there in that go down like location that they will be fighting that precise opponent, which they will be assuming would be like about while Ichigo's training happening on the other side against that woman. Uh, it's like the scenario that I'm just depicting right now in the game production. So like the flavor of the game Reptil right now as for like the team Ichigo states like I'm suffering right now. By the time Ichigo would be defeating that flaming monster that summoned or created by like the supporter found like I'm suffering by not for Ichigo to be able to like strike that fury monster I'm suffering definitely like Ichigo would have like pushed himself to like bring out his like Bankai power, the even with the revenge. Bring out Ichigo's Bankai power would be like the only way for Ichigo to be able to like bring down that precise theory monster is definitely going to reimbursion. So like this would be like how the training for the different maybe like this would be like the precise training, single training that might be near for like since like Ichigo has already in the it's like bank has had already access to bank account in that society and also like in like the human world it would be like accessing like the bank account would be like totally different. It's definitely not the same. Like there will be that absolute difference between like the world of like the how Bankai powers could be like unleashed, how like how he's like the Bankai powers could be unleashed in like the soul society when compared to like the human world is certainly not level. So like in order to train it's go to like be able to like unleash like his Bankai powers at will whenever he wants, like in like even in like the human world as well. With the precise like a reason for just like Ichigo's like whole fight with this bounce where it would be like in actuality it would be only like it was like banker training in like the human world, strength banker training in like the human world by for the rest definitely when so like I'm just bringing this fight little like it go as well as this theory monster anything like it was bringing out with banker power and with a single strike with it was banker power and then bring it go taking out and bringing down this like giant theory monster like the scenario that I'm doing and I was bringing in like the same situation like the case of like Chad as well as or him about the their training about stealthy training about the training will be like happening in like a together manner of settlement preparation even with like that precise special mode so guy like running away and also bring like maybe like Chad or him running after him and catching up to him right now itself it's also like about the that about the so like also maybe like in like there will be like this precise location as well that precisely according to like Urahara's plan that Urahara might have told that precise special mode told to like basically throw and endure like Chad as well as for him to where like that mode told is like might be assigned this like giving it strange like that, you know, where like I'm supposed to bring Chad as well as for him through that fight I'm supposed to bring like awakening new level of strength or like learning new power is like the scenario that I'm going to bring. And I'm going to bring definitely like Urahara's like special modes on like bound training for like Ishida would be like extra special supplement of training. Exactly because in the case of Ishida, like Ishida currently have like absolutely no access at all to his like powers, like to exactly awaken and like to, so for like to restore back the access to like Ishida's 20 powers as well as to like increase like upgrade like Ishida's like 20 powers and take it to like new levels of strikes would be like the intent intent with which I'm going to bring like Urahara might have totally planned like the whole uh, training for like Quincy training for like Ishida definitely stealthy Quincy training for Ishida definitely so like I'm simple in the case of like Ishida's training I'm considering it to be like a lot more difficult and maybe like a lot more intense and I'm considering it to be through that whole fight against like what Ishida might be initially believing to be like a bound which I'm considering by the time like the fight would be like almost over like I'm considering even before like the fight will be fully over, like by the time like the fight will be developing and almost reaching towards its climax itself, I'm also feeling like it should totally even being able to like, figure out that basically the opponent he's facing is not a bound, but like it's in fact like for Ahara's like next training for Ishida. It's like such another that I was doing. But like I was bringing by the time he would be figuring it out, like I was thinking Ishida would have totally been would have successfully be able to would have been able to like bring out and get back access to his legacy powers and it will be through like that ability power that like I'm going to bring shit out would be like really pouring and defeating that great um like precise opponent like supposedly bound like uh, opponent train up of like which like Hara would have assigned stealthily assigned for like it should have like prevention scenario that I'm going to talk about it. And that way like if you going through like reaching like new levels of strike is like the scenario that I'm going to bring about the story and shit. Also, that's Lima with Miriam Crystal right now, like Rukia right now showing up to like say this is like definitely my personal impression is that like definitely even Rukia's like entrance right now would be definitely totally based on like Urahara's like secret and stealthy phone conversation that Urahara might have recently totally have with like Rukia. It's definitely my personal impression like Rukia as well totally will be well now fully aware of like what all this thing like all the entire bound situation being like exercise Urahara tell the theater training of it was definitely my personal impression. So like I was like the current scenario definitely won't be like Rukia basically overhearing or like finding out through like or like Kyoraku or like Ukitake or like telling Rukia as to like the situation of like the bounce in like the human world and basically Rukia genuinely being worried for like Ichigo and basically Rukia showing up to like the human world to like protect Ichigo or help Ichigo out in like bringing down the bounce or anything like that. Definitely won't be the scenario at all. It's definitely my good friend. Rukia would be like right now as Rukia has shown up like Rukia would be well fully aware that like all this is just like or Hara's like stealthy training of Ichigo. And O'Hara might have totally convinced like Rukia that basically like how important this is for like the safety of not just the human world but also of like the soul society as well. Not just the soul society but also that of like the human world as well. As for like the getting back like the whole issue like how extremely important it is to know that like to ensure that like the soul society and like the human world is able to like survive and stopping is and like how extremely important it is to do that as soon as possible. Like that like I'm about to find for Haram might have definitely even after Ritual Through have shown up to like the human world. Other than back from like the soul society, like I'm considering like Haram might have totally steadily found Rukia and might have told Rukia and convinced Rukia about all this and like so Rukia even showing up right now will be totally part of like according to like the first orders of like Korahara and yeah, would be like right now shown up, yeah, in front of Ichigo to like totally play her part in basically like allowing Ichigo to be able to like once again access to like Bankai powers in like the human world and bring down that giant fiery monster. And that would be like and that way to like help out stealthily with like Ichigo Bankai training in like the human world. To be like sole reason for like Rukia right now showing up. It's definitely my total version. So like basically according to my personal consumption, even though like right now I'm definitely protecting for like the whole current bound situation being like definitely or harass like stealthy training for like it's going through to get them to get them stronger like and possibly even your as well to get your to sharpen up the skills of your as well. But still I'm considering like eventually in like the future. Most likely in like the future I'm considering that the actual pro bound to like actually show up it's like the winter scenario that I was in. But and one like the actual pro bounce will be showing up. They will be like a whole lot extremely seriously a whole lot intimidating and extremely trickery and extremely way superiorly stronger as well. It's like the winter scenario that I'm basically actual bounce was different. Like the actual pro bounce was different to like literally show up in like the distant future. It's also like a definitive angel future of the distant future scenario that I did. Again, at that point, I was thinking like definitely at that point for like if you go and through it when like for like only at that point like the thing is we are seeing that basically it's all for once again it's all like for Hara going to like stealthily train us would be along the line which you went through the thing, but like I'm considering like them getting at that point, like them getting that eventually getting that shock of surprise that like it's not for Hara's doing and that it's like the act this time at that time it's like the actual real deal, the actual true bounce that has shown up like basically such a shocking eventual future scenario is one thing and personally only something for like 7 minutes to pick up and my personal reaction.